For recording purposes, I'm going to stay close to the mic. They had hooked me up so I can move around, which I'm more comfortable with, but I don't want to compete with our neighbors anymore than the bleed over that's coming over. So, okay, but yeah, I'll stick here till then. Hey, before I get into the brief, I want to introduce one other member of our team, Sergeant Major Rivera. Unfortunately, we're losing her in October. She's going to go over to JFHQ Cyber, be the senior enlisted advisor to General Barrett over there. But she comes to us. We've had her for the last year at the Office Chief of Cyber. Came out of 780th MI Brigade through the Sergeant Major course. Has done a phenomenal job laying out and helping the rest of us understand what the NSA work roles mean for the cyber mission force. So Sergeant Major Rivera's here. Depending on how when we get into questions and whatnot, how that goes, you might be hearing from her later as well. Okay, so agenda. Not going to dwell on the agenda slide, but what I want to highlight, I've been at Office Chief of Cyber now for a little over a year. I walked right into Afcea TechNet last year. I think got here 3-4 weeks before it began. Got the opportunity to talk to the crowd out there then. So last year what we focused on was the cyber mission force in the build, what we refer to as phase 1. So this year we've moved on to phase 2. Still continuing with the Cyber Mission Force, the 17 series build. Okay, no worries. All right, so what I'd like to do, we'll walk through the phase 2, all the stuff that Mr. Boudreau just alluded to, the EW cyber convergence. We'll walk you through the actions that we're doing. Then at the end, if we have time, pending questions, we'll get into, give you a health update for all MOS's areas of concentration associated with cyber and EW. Okay, so kind of a lengthy problem statement, but what I want to, when we sat down with General Fogarty, Mr. Boudreau, Colonel Buckner before she left, what we came up with, what we're trying to solve, at the end of the day, Cyber Center of Excellence goal was to provide commanders at Echelons Corps and Below with trained personnel capable of planning, synchronizing, integrating, and executing cyberspace, electronic warfare, and electromagnetic spectrum operations. So that's what we're looking at leveraging the EW force. We have we're in a everybody knows no growth environment right now. Bear with me one second. All right, can everybody hear me on this? Still, okay, good. Yep, even better. All right. So we're in a zero growth environment in the Army right now. You know, the joys of downsizing and whatnot. All right, just one second. Your side's good. What's that? I'm about to. Okay. All right, there we go. All right, so in spirit of teamwork and leveraging existing assets to work the Echelon Corps and Below piece, we looked at our 29 series workforce. They're there. They're trained to do certain aspects, and if we go through this, you'll see the steps we're taking to increase the trainability for the commanders at Echelons Corps and Below. Before we get into that, I want to talk about couple points on here. First bullet there, rising near peer threats. We take that to heart. Ukraine, everybody got to sit in General Fogarty's opening remarks yesterday. Lieutenant General Hughes piped in from U.S. Army Europe. We got a really good overview of the challenges being faced by the world today in the electronic warfare arena. So what we're trying to do is we want to posture the Army to meet near-peer threats with advanced cyber and electronic warfare capabilities. And I'll get into that later on, how we're going to do that with the personnel side. Second bullet there, the Cyber Mission Force, when that stood up, I mean, that was resourced at the strategic level. So anytime you're talking about a national mission team, a cyber protection team, you're talking about a strategic asset. So we're looking, what we were faced with was, how do we provide bang for the buck for the FORSCOM formations as well? And how do we get after that mission at Echelon Corps and Below? Cyber planners integrators not resourced at ECB. That is technically true. There's a lot of training out there, different courses, ACOPSI, JNAC, and whatnot. But it was never put to an individual. So once the 29 series built out enough, and then we could start filling all those formations at battalion, brigade, and division level, it was just a natural progression to shift that cyber planning role over to the 29 series. And again, a little later on, we'll talk about how we're going to get after that with the training aspect, increased training and capability for the electronic warfare formations. From authorities down to current and EW capacity, what I want to highlight there is, bottom line, electronic warfare is not going away. Mr. Boudreau alluded to it in his opening remarks. If anything, we're going to solidify that capability in the Army. I think the hand and force modernization proponency for electronic warfare down to the Cyber Center of Excellence, putting it under the TRADOC umbrella, was a brilliant move. Nothing against Combined Arms Center, great Americans up there. They're really just not resourced to execute the force modernization proponent mission. So moving that down there really helps solidify that piece. And then from that bottom piece there, talking about the Career Field 29 and some of the challenges we face with those guys today, and this is near and dear to the Personnel Proponent Office. What we'll be able to do by integrating, merging these two workforces, we're going to significantly improve career opportunities and promotion opportunities for the electronic warfare workforce, specifically on the officer side. In the past, the 29 Alpha has suffered from below Army average promotion rates, and they've also been hit hard when it comes to the OSB and the SERBs, the boards where officers are selected for being processed out of the Army. So that side of it, we're going to fix that problem too. I'm not going to sit here and articulate what General Fogarty refers to as his money slide. What I want to, I just want to, what I want to leave you with on this slide is, this is our guiding force. And General Fogarty goes across and he talks about all the the strategic plan out of the COE, the FM 312, which is hopefully in the last few months of publication. There's full integration of everything mentioned in the Army Warfighter Challenge number 7. So we everything we do on the personnel proponent side to modify that force gets after AWFC number 7. Okay, so CEMA operational framework. I'm sure a lot of people in this room have seen this slide. I know it was in several briefs last year. You had the base cyberspace operations down here, delineating the defensive cyber operations and the offensive cyberspace operations. What we get around this message, or when we brief this with the EW spin on it, what we try to highlight here is that cyber and EMS technologies are converging. Mr. Boudreau mentioned some of them at the beginning, but the Wi-Fi, WiMAX, 3G, 4G, smartphones, more recently the software-defined radios, the environments are coming together. So the cyber and EW convergence is perfect timing for it from a technological perspective, and we'll be able to get after a lot of the mission sets in the tactical formations with cyberspace effects that in the past, the technology would not have supported, but in today's environment, it absolutely 100% supports. All right, so I talked about the phases. Phase 1 last year was the CMF build-out for the 17 Alpha, 170 Alpha, 17 Charlie. Phase 2, we'll go into that on the next slide. And then Phase 3, which is kind of running concurrently with Phase 2, is cyber support to Echelon Corps and Below. Okay, so over the last 2 Decembers, December 2015, December 2014, there's been 2 electronic warfare SME panels where they've come together, and the resounding consensus was course of action number 3, which was full integration of the electronic warfare and the cyberspace workforce. So what does that mean? So today up at TRADOC, we have 3 MOX action staffing, military occupation classification structure packets, 1 for each cohort. So I'll walk through what we're doing on each cohort. So for the 29 Alpha, it's currently a functional area. At the captain's career course point in an officer's career, they have the opportunity to, through the VTIP process, Volunteer Transfer Incentive Program, say, I want to be an electronic warfare officer. So the MOX we have staffing will delete that functional area. To replace that functional area, we're going to create a 17 Bravo area of concentration. From a manning document perspective, it won't mean any increased authorizations, decreased authorizations out in FORSCOM formations. The authorizations will remain the same. They're just going to be labeled as 17 Bravo vice 29 Alpha. On the personnel side, the change is a lot more significant. So instead of recruiting across the Army to fill that 17 Bravo electronic warfare officer in FORSCOM formations and other places across the Army, the 17 Bravo is going to be primarily recruited out of the 17 Alpha cyber operations officer. The main impact there is a cadet comes in, ROTC, West Point, OCS, comes in, 17 Alpha, comes down here, goes through BOLIC, goes out to the operational force, gathers some cyber effects experience, working at the strategic level. At the 4 to 5 year mark, coming up on Captain's Career Course, they'll have the opportunity to go down to Fort Sill for some the electronic warfare qualification course, which is the same course that's used today to produce a 29 Alpha, and then they'll come out of that course and they'll have the new AOC of 17 Bravo. They'll still have their base area of concentration of 17 Alpha. They'll still get promoted as a 17 Alpha. This is the same model that Signal uses with the 25 Alpha and the 25 Golf. It's the same model that military intelligence uses with the 35 Delta, 35 Fox, 35 Echo, and 35 Golf. But at the end of the day, the biggest impact is you will have a 17 Bravo electronic warfare officer in a tactical formation that has the strategic cyber effects experience and can go down there, knows how to leverage national assets, knows what capabilities are out there, and can provide a lot more bang for the buck for the FORSCOM formations than the current 29 Alpha workforce. All right. So that's where the biggest change is. I'm talking about the officer cohort. On the enlisted side, or the warrant officer side, the 290 Alpha, the MOX action that's staffing for that converts the 290 Alpha to a 170 Bravo, and that becomes the electromagnetic spectrum and network exploitation technician. There will be, well, actually, here, let me hit on the 29 Echo. 29 Echo is going to convert to 17 Echo. That will still continue to be an in-service accession MOS, meaning that they'll be brought in as specialist promotable or sergeant non-promotable. But for those two, the biggest changes will be down the road as we modify the training, make sure we get cyber planning capability, and whatever else the critical task site selection boards drives, says whatever critical tasks these guys need to do their job. So we'll be training modifications coming up for these guys down the road. So before I move on off of this, has anybody got questions about these conversions? Not at this point, okay. So now, I talked about 17 Echo remaining a in-service accession MOS. So these MOX actions don't get after force structure at all. We're not changing force structure at this point. Now there are a lot of discussions going on, and there's a lot of good models out there in the Army right now, specifically with the 3rd Infantry Division, where they've taken their electronic warfare specialists from the maneuver battalions, task organized them at the brigades and division, so that you don't have a 29 Echo sergeant sitting down in a maneuver battalion alone and unafraid, being misused, being labeled an extra worker, not being able to receive EW training. So we're looking heavily at the 3rd ID model. I'm not saying that's going to be the model that we're going after, but there'll be ongoing discussions on the force structure and what the best way to do that is. The next hurdle for that is later on in this month, the 22nd and 23rd. We're bringing in key leaders from the electronic warfare community. They'll converge down here at Fort Gordon. We're going to sit down for 2 days, go through TICM EW, the TRADOC capability manager, Colonel Dotson from Fort Gordon. He'll be there giving a brief. We'll have Colonel Presby, TICM Cyber. He'll be in there talking about latest cyber material. We'll have Colonel Church down from DA level EW office, soon to be DAMO Cyber under the leadership of General Frost. And for those of you not tracking that, at the DAG3 level, we're finally going to get a office up there specific to DAMO Cyber. And underneath that office will be obviously the cyber piece. EW and IO, Information Operations, is going to be under her purview as well. So that's where we're going on that. I do believe that the structure piece it will be the next major hurdle. As we got to figure out where to best task organize these guys, because the current model, the training is what suffers the most. But 3rd ID, like I said, got some good. And they're coming up 22nd and 23rd August. They're going to come up. They're going to brief their operations, walk through what they're doing down there, so everybody in the room can see. Not saying that'll be the model we end up following, but definitely I think it'll be eye-opening to some of the folks there on what they're doing and how we can better support Echelon Corps and Below commanders by consolidating that workforce. Yep, yes, sir.
I'm just not clear about this process here. For 17, for 25, when you come to the career course, your assignment as an S6, same as the S6 course. So for the 17 Bravo, when you come to the career course, is your assignment as an EW, once you go to the 17 Bravo course, or all 17 belongs to
All 17s will be able to become a 17 Bravo. It'll be eligible to everybody. It won't be at the VTIP process at that point. It'll be the same way that Signal and Military Intelligence does. The Human Resources Command will work with the officers, identify ones that look like they got strong potential to serve in that force, and specifically target them to go to the Electronic Warfare Qualification course, and then go out and serve in force-com formations. So it won't be the VTIP process at that point. Now, on that note, though, we will, depending on strengths and whatnot, across both the cyber operations officers and the electronic warfare officers, VTIP will still be open. But if someone VTIP'd in and was going to end up being a 17 Bravo, they would be qualified as a 17 Alpha cyber operations officer before they were qualified as a 17 Bravo. And then, so that would be a pretty lengthy pipeline with the transition course and then the 4-month electronic warfare qualification course, but that is feasible.
So, in the Corps and Below, will they be working on the DSP or will be working with their single film? Because that's not something like I'm a 17 and I go to a 4.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah, Mr. Joe, you want to address that from a 312 perspective?
That's happening already, and that's the challenge that we're having to fix. And so the 29 series, the Army never was able to give all the resources to bring electronic warfare out to what it was in the early to give defensive, electronic attack, IEC, offensive, EJC, all of those areas. And so instead of growing to almost 4,000, it stopped at 1,000. So that was the first issue. The second issue is we believe that the training, although it's done quite well at Fort Sill, doesn't have the benefit of some of the things we do here at Fort Gordon, as well as leveraging some of our academic partners like DTRI, who, I mean, they're at the RDC and they're really experts in the electromagnetic spectrum, who we are bringing electrons. So we have 29 series orders coming, electronic warfare officers, that were very disadvantaged for all of those reasons. And then with the CEMA construct, we said, by the way, you're also leading the CEMA. So if you've read 3-38, that will be superseded and will go away with the publication of FM 3-12. All the good stuff out of FM 3-38 will be pulled into 312, it already is, but there were some things that were in FM 3-38 that were kind of untenable. Such as if you understand the structure of a BCP, it took that captain, EWO, and said, now you're going to be the CEMA, the lead CEMA planner, and in charge of CEMA activities. And if you're leading that, that means that you're in charge of somebody else. And who you're in charge of, the 6 and the 2, well, they're majors. How does that work? You know, it doesn't work that way. So we really gave them a tenable situation at 29, and then said, oh, by the way, you're also going to lead in cyber planning, which they have never done. So our intelligence planners are what? 35 series. Why? Because they've got training, education, and experience in them. Our signal planners are what? 25. Why would we do that? Because you have training, education, and experience. Well, today our cyber planners are what? 29. Because they have no training, they have no education, and they have no experience. And so we have really not set them up for success. So in the future, 17s, as Shawn said, and so somewhat to your point, those that are getting assigned to 17 Bravo position and some others will go through a transition course. So they'll get a more exquisite, we're going to take what Fort Sill did, and we're going to do what they've been doing, but we're going to modify and amplify that and create a more exquisite course for electronic warfare. But when they get there, you won't be burdened with cyber planning because that's what you will have done as a lieutenant and captain up to that point. And we're not putting the CEMA 17 Bravo in charge. That's one of the big ideas of this changing culture. Everyone worries about who's in charge. Instead, we're looking at an operation, so CEMA may change to CMOs, and we've already talked about that before, but it's really not in competition for who's in charge. We're in cooperation with signal, EW, cyber, intelligence, space, IO, fire, and coming together and forming capability. So don't be worried about who's in charge of how many hats. All that's still being worked out, where that single planner should be. We think it should really be under the 3 because it's really an operational construct, more so than a 6 or a 2, and I think that'll solve itself. But I guarantee you, when we are able to help officers go through the training and education and then build a pathway for experience, which is what this builds out, now you've created a capability. And that capability will be exquisite. And that capability, we're not increasing capacity, but we are diametrically changing who we assess, how we train them, and more importantly, how they educate them to become experienced. And so that'll work itself out. I don't know if that answers your question. Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
So you're out of that assumption that personnel translation is going to receive
That's a great question. We're actually in the process of fixing that now. John or Sergeant Major, can you tell on the enlisted side, the requirement to come in today is a secret, and then it goes to top secret at Staff Sergeant? I might be wrong on that. It might be Sergeant First Class. But bottom line, in the future, there'll be an admin box that changes the DAPAM 611-21 that requires the 29 Echoes coming in from day one to have a top secret clearance. So in the 17 Alpha is coming over 17 Bravo. We'll already have one because that's a 17 Alpha requirement. And then the 170 Bravo is being fed from the 17 Echo. The 17 Echoes coming up in the future will all have TS clearances. Yes, absolutely. Check. Well, yep, one Army standard across that. Same DAPAM 61121. Any MOS or AOC prereq laid out for active component will also be applicable to Compos 2 and 3. Absolutely. So the last piece I wanted to hit on this, we're talking about there will be a Delta training. We're working through defining that now. We're not just going to, throw all this, hey, you now need to perform X, Y, and Z on this workforce without, coming up with a Delta training. Not sure what that'll look like. Could be MTTs going out to formations. Could be bringing groups back here. Could be adding additions on to PME. Not sure how that's going to play out, but we'll definitely address that. Now, on the enlisted side, we have some. Right now, the 29 Echo, the electronic warfare specialist, does not have an advanced leader course. We had a career management field review last week with HRC. We got the green light from the boss, Colonel Record, the Cyber School Commandant, to go ahead and start working towards building an ALC. We're holding a CTSSB, the Critical Task Site Selection Board. John, when is that? September? So what will come out of that Critical Task Site Selection Board will be 30 level tasks assigned to be taught at the resident or institutional location, and that will develop an advanced leader course. The Cyber Non-Commissioned Officer Academy is already fully on board. There's a Mr. Phil, what's his last name? Phil Arnold, who's been fully engaged helping us with that. He will sit in the Critical Task Site Selection Board, make sure that our tasks adequately reflect what a 30 level task should look like. I don't have a crystal ball, but I would speculate that there'll be some cyber type planning involved in those tasks to help start building that capability to meet the convergence that we're talking about. Okay, so from the personnel actions going on to converge these two workforces, that's where we're at today. Before I get into the health across the entire 17 and 29 career fields, do I have any more questions about the convergence piece? Sir, yes, sir. So, okay, so is your concern about an individual going from strategic to tactical formations?
Yeah, you were saying always
okay. Check. So the way we fix that, there's not really a simple answer to that. And I know Mr. Boudreau might be able to pop up here for if I fail miserably at answering this. The bottom line, what we've envisioned seeing is as we put these capabilities out there, the 06 at core, the 05s at the division levels, as the capabilities that we want them to be able to perform, as they start to wrap their hands around them, they will develop training plans to bring that force in. So instead of having a captain show up fresh to a brigade or division formation with no top cover, won't happen. There'll be other electronic warfare officers out there that'll be able to bring them in, embrace them, walk them through, show them what right looks like in a FORSCOM formation. To your question, we have got some feedback from the Captain Career Course guys about, you know, hey, it's going to be a difficult transition going from the strategic world to the tactical world. My counter to that is Signal, MI, and a handful of other branches do that today. Like on the military intelligence side, there's a heavy branch detail population, so a lot of them come in as infantry guys, armor guys, whatever, and then become MI at the Captain's Career Course point. But there's a handful of lieutenants that go out, serve their time in INSCOM, the Intelligence Security Command formations at the strategic level, and then after Captain's Career Course get put out into division. Now with the MI assets that are out there, yeah, it might take them a few months to pick up the vernacular, but they're not unsuccessful as MI officers, and we kind of envision the same model for EW. Is that fair? Okay. Sir. You're talking about the CEMA cell coming together as a functioning entity at the brigade, division, and corps levels. Yeah, no, absolutely. As that team gets better, yeah, that's a good point.
So that's kind of brilliant in the former staff in the Army looking at this saying, hey, you need a three-pronged effect. Number one, you need to establish a training for the new cyber branch. And so pulling that into an institution rather than a burden on the operational force to get them trained at a skill level, if you will. At the same time, look at electronic warfare and take that, because being a single school that creates both of the training and education and then career maps for those, you kind of meld that together, and so you get some understanding, as well as looking at how you employ them through branch detail and some of those other things. But then we also have the responsibility to train the rest of the force. And so we're doing that really through three different parts. So we have a brigade, division, and corps planners course, if you will, the Army Leader Cyber Operations course, where we go and we provide an MTT of 4 days, and we help those planners, Signal, MI, Cyber, EW, IO, all of them come together and kind of look at this more holistically instead of everyone in their little silos. So the model, I'm going to use this at a later date, later this afternoon. If you don't know, General Fogarty is briefing from 1600 to 1700. It's not on the schedule, but you've got some important things to say, and if you don't have that on your schedule, but he continues to drive this convergence. So he's part of a group. I mean, that's our model in the United States. Out of the many, one, and it's that force of one that overcomes. And so what ends up happening, though, is we get into our little tribes, and our new enlisted soldiers and new officers, when they come in, they don't know that. I mean, they're still talking with their friends that became infantry officers and armor officers and signal officers until we beat it out of them, and we tell them, you don't talk to anyone else except for just in your tribe. And so we're going to try to break that, and we do that through training, through education, through experience. We also have a senior leader cyber operations course, orientation, that is focused at drill officers, SES, select sergeant majors, and W5. And it's really about a 6-hour course that helps them. And what we do is we don't teach them digits and hexadecimal and binary conversion and what TCP/IP is and all that kind of stuff. We really talk to them in their language and show them the capability and where the effects become important. the piece that's not up here, and maybe it's more important pulling us all together, is we're also responsible to get cyberspace operations, training and education into all of the professional military education. And so when we have CAT career course being conducted at Fort Benning, what are they learning about this domain? And the one thing, having come from the Intelligence Center of Excellence and the Signal Center of Excellence before it became Cyber Center of Excellence, that we will not do is create a 3-day course because there's a bright new shiny object that causes those course managers to shove something that they feel more important is off the table because we won't have so many training hours. But we're going to work with them based on their warfighting function, interleave an understanding of cyberspace operations, cyberspace defensive cyberspace operations, cybersecurity, and what all that means in their vernacular. And so what we're not doing is creating a bunch of exquisitely IP-level geeks that speak dolphin speak, as one general officer said, or we're teaching them how to be able to speak in a manner that a warfighting commander can really integrate this and spin this into his warfighting requirements. So I'll get back off the stage with this. General, it's interesting how the right leaders who seem to be appointed at the right time. General Hernandez stood up Army Cyber Command. He had a understanding of the personnel system of what it took to start building those teams. General Cardone followed him. And what I think General Cardone brought to the Army cyber line is he's an engineer officer by training. And so he was a brigade commander for an engineer brigade and took his exquisite capabilities and had to then offer them and help another commander synchronize them into their scheme of movement. And then he was a BCT commander, which then turned it upside down on its head, and he had to then learn how to synchronize other capabilities into his scheme of movement. And that is going to be, and that is the Army Cyber Branch, including our cyber effects workforce and electronic warfare workforce, is that we are there to both synchronize our capabilities into a larger scheme of maneuvers for these high-rate operations, but also sometimes this will be the battle. And so how do we work with the other warfighting capabilities and understand them and be able to communicate with them logically in a way that they understand so that they can help them synchronize their capabilities into a cyber operation?
Well, thanks, Tom. Much appreciated. All right, any more questions on the EWPs? Did you have something? Sure. Sure. No, absolutely. And I tell you, the doctrine chief, Lieutenant Colonel Chris Walls, I don't know if anybody from his team's in here, but in the FM 312, the draft that's out there, they've done a great job of weaving that in there, kind of getting at Colonel Johnson's point, specifically laying out what all players coming to the table bring to the fight. So we'll. They're having. All right, if there's no further questions on that, I think we got enough time. I want to give you a quick update on the health of, I'm going to run through all 6, 317s, 329s, enlisted warrant officer and officer for all. The bottom line here, you'll hear a continuous positive, a lot of hard work is gone into building out this force, and where we're sitting today across all 4 MOSs and 2 AOC, well, 1 AOC in a functional area, is absolutely phenomenal. I'll just hit on some key highlights that were going on there. I don't know if you can read that, but right there, the overall strength right now of 17 Charlie, the cyber operations specialist, is, that one says 73%. These charts are a couple months old because we had to get these turned into Afcea ahead of time. We're sitting over, I think, at 77% today, John. Okay, so in the big picture thing, you might look at that and say, well, hey, that's not really good. Well, this MOS stood up 1 October of 15. It was the first time the 17 Charlie ever appeared on a Manning document anywhere. So because of the work that Signal did with the 25 Delta side, military intelligence did with the 35 Quebec side, to fill out a workforce of 700 plus soldiers and NCOs, from day one we were able to bring over 500. John Plott, Sergeant Major Rivera, their efforts on heavy recruiting in service, I think to date, 9 in-service folks have graduated as 17 Charlies. I mean, that's a 6-month-long course, so that's from work that John and Sergeant Major Rivera did, 8, 10, 12 months ago. So 75, 77% today, projected to be just at 100% by first quarter FY18. And everybody's like, oh, that's kind of a ways out there. I can tell you today, there's MOSs that have been in the Army for decades that aren't sitting this strong. So a lot of kudos for the team for building that out. 29 Echo, sitting very good there as well. 98% strength. I think that's a little higher on the most recent charts. But one of the keys to the 29 Echo that I want to highlight here, it's not up on the slide, but about 5-6 months ago, Master Sergeant Williams, our life cycle manager for 29 Echo, did a very detailed, in-depth analysis of ST scores and the attrition rate out at Fort Sill for the 29 Echo course. We were losing about 40%. About 40% were failing out. So he found a sweet spot where we could increase the ST score by, I think it was 6 points. And we should see a significant reduction in attrition rate, which will help us save training dollars. When you're losing 40%, you got to train a lot more to get the graduates you want. So those individuals with the new ST requirement of 105 have been starting to hit the schoolhouse. So we'll continue to track that to make sure that that's bringing that attrition rate down as far as we want. That's also good timing for that, because that will help with the increased ST score. Smarter soldiers will be able to apply some additional cyber skills on them as well. Not that cyber skills are any harder than electronic warfare skills, but we're pretty happy about how that went in the strengths. Now, one other thing about 29 Echoes, because they were stood up in the mid-2000s, to date, they've promoted very, very well. They've had above Army average promotion rates. Pretty much every enlisted promotion board that's been held. We're at the point now where that force is filled out, and those promotion rates will start to level off and get within Army average. There's some NCOs out there that will be a little disappointed with that, but from the personnel proponent perspective, we're very happy with that, because that means the cut can get a little more stringent, and we'll start. Not that we were promoting wrong NCOs in the past, but we can make sure that we're promoting the ones we want in the future. So, but yeah, good news on that front. 170 Alpha strengths there. Right now we're sitting at about 50% strength, but that's by design. We're doing that build out a little more methodical. To date, I think we've pulled in. Mostly what we pulled in is signal officers, 255 series and 352 series out of MI. About 54% have come out of signal, 47% come out of MI. But we're continuing to bring those over. We have a large warrant officer population for the amount of 17 Charlie NCOs to feed it. So our sessions will always be open across the Army. Have to come in with the right skills. We look at for computer science degrees, previous employment as in the IT world, computer science world, and then we're also leveraging sister services for our Army Warrant Officer program. I think in the first one we got a Marine and I ain't gonna lie to you, I can't remember. We ended up getting 2 services, and then for the next board coming up, Chief Kosinch, who's not up here, he's actually up at HRC working on warrant officer sessions requirements. I think he's got 4 Navy NCOs that are in the hopper that want to be Army 170 Alphas. He said 2 of them have really strong packets, and he's waiting for some information on the other one. So we're going to continue to bring in sister service on that side.